In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, a great black shape against the fires beyond he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all fled before his face. All save one. There, waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the free horses of the earth endured the terror, unmoving, steadfast as a graven image in Rath Dinnan. You cannot enter here, said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back. Fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. The Black Rider flung back his hood, and behold, he had a kingly crown, and yet upon no head visible was it set. The red fire shone between it, and the mantled shoulders vast and dark. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. Old fool, he said, old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain. And with that he lifted high his sword, and flames ran down the blade. Gandalf did not move.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Keep on Tolkien with Joel N.
And Danny J, how's it going?
Welcome back for part 2 on Gandalf.
Gandalf. So yeah, we left Gandalf. Well, let's talk about that opening passage a little bit. That's
Yeah, first of all, that opening passage is epic as hell.
yeah, that was probably the longest one we've ever had. But it was well deserved. That's probably my favorite Gandalf moment, I think, ever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, squaring off against the Witch King at the Battle of Minas Tirith. But
Yeah.
we're going to get into that in more depth later on in this episode, guys.
Yeah, this episode we're going to try to do Gandalf some justice and include a good chunk of excerpts about badass Gandalf moments.
Yeah, so you get to hear us struggle to read.
It's going to be an entertaining episode. Episode 2. All right, so when we left Gandalf, I believe they had just made it to Rivendell after the whole battle at the Forge. I shouldn't say battle.
It was a confrontation. Yeah,
The confrontation at
the
the Forge.
confrontation at the fort of Berinan. Yeah, yeah. So that's where we left off. So now we've got a wounded Frodo in Rivendell, right? That's
Mhm.
where we're at.
We're in Rivendell. We've got a wounded Frodo. Gandalf has recently been betrayed by Saruman. And
Right.
he's also recently befriended Shadowfax.
Yeah.
Pretty significant friendship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So at this point in the story at Rivendell, this is when we have the Council of Elrond, where, of course, Gandalf is a big character there. He tells his part of the story of the ring as Elrond tries to piece it all together with the people that are present.
Right. And Gandalf knows more than everybody else. He's just basically there filling everybody else on it in, and then they add their piece, how
Right.
it fits into the story.
I think Gandalf knows pretty much everything Elrond knows at this point, or most of it.
Yeah, I think he might even surprise Elrond from time to time with things.
I suppose he is Maiar. So at this point at the Council of Elrond is when they come up with the Fellowship. The Fellowship is comprised. And I didn't actually realize this until recently when we were putting this episode together, but apparently the 9 members of the Fellowship are supposed to be directly set against the 9 wraiths.
Oh, hell yeah. You didn't know that?
No.
That's deeply significant.
No, I did not
Yeah.
catch that for whatever reason.
Elrond fucking says that in the extended edition, I'm pretty sure.
What?
I'm pretty sure, like, as they do that wide shot of the Fellowship, like, as they're standing there in the Council of Elrond, he says 9
9 companions.
9 companions to match 9 riders or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never connected those dots. This is
Hell
such
yeah.
this is such a deep part of my childhood. This is kind of blowing my mind right now.
Joel's mind is blown. Yeah, it's deeply significant that they chose 9. Which is why, like, because Gandalf didn't, like, Elrond didn't really want Pippin and Merry to go. And Gandalf kind of used that as an excuse, like, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we did 9, huh?
Wouldn't it be pretty significant?
It'd be pretty, significant numerology, right?
And we get extra hobbits, which is fun.
Yeah.
So Gandalf essentially takes charge of the Fellowship at this point. Well, him and Aragorn, they do a pretty good co-op job of leading through the wilderness.
Yeah, they're often like kind of arguing about like which way to go and stuff, but they have their shit locked down.
Between the two of them,
two of them.
I wouldn't trust any other pair like more.
Yeah, no, for real. Gandalf and Aragorn.
That's a most solid pair.
Yeah. You got wisdom versus brute strength and cunning and tracking ability of Aragorn.
Yeah, he's just survivalist hardcore.
Hell yeah.
And then you've got the magic of a Maiar.
He's the chieftain of the Dunedain.
The Dunedain. Anywho, so they head south from Rivendell, and they start heading towards the mountain pass on the mountain of Caradhras, which at this time of year is the beginning of winter, so it's starting to get kind of treacherous. At a point, they almost make it sound as though the mountain itself is almost sentient and like understands that they're there,
right? Yeah,
trying to pass it, and it makes the snow and the weather so much worse.
Yeah, and in the
specifically where they are
in the movie, they do like that battle with Saruman, like saying that Saruman is behind it, which is totally feasible. I don't think they specifically say that in the book.
No,
but totally feasible that it was Saruman. Yeah, and they kind of have that battle there, which is a cool part.
I'm pretty sure they say directly that it's the mountain working against them.
Do they?
Or at least that's what like Gimli suspects and outwardly says.
Right. Gimli's the mountain expert.
Gimli. So after they decide they can't cross the mountain, they decide against Aragorn's. I don't want to say his better judgment. He didn't. He just really was against the idea.
Yeah, he was.
He caved and they decided to go through Moria.
Yeah, and Moria. So at this point, which we learned in the Council of Elrond, nobody's heard from anybody in Moria. They went back to reclaim it. Balin and Ori and a handful of other dwarves went back to reclaim it, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they haven't heard from them for, what is it, like 30, 60 years? Something
something
like that.
That was the reason why Gloin and who else was there?
Gimli and Gloin.
Was it just Gloin? I think it was just Gloin, at least of the Lonely Mountain Dwarves. But yeah, that's why he said he was at the council, because they hadn't heard from Balin in such a long time.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He was concerned. But this is obviously not good news for them now that they have to go through the mines of Moria. Gimli was really the only one who had any kind of enthusiasm for the plan.
Right. Yeah, and Gimli's kind of, he's hopeful that they'll find dwarves down there.
Right. I mean, this is partially why he joined up with the Fellowship. He was worried about Balin.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously this plan quickly goes south. They're met instantly at the gate of Moria with the mysterious Watcher creature. They don't even explain quite what it is, or if it's one or many slithery things.
Yeah.
All Gandalf hints at is that it's something that like crept out of the depths of the deep waters under the mountain.
It's big and it's gross.
It's nasty.
And so that pulls down the fucking doorway.
Yeah.
And traps them inside there.
So now they have to go through, and they find out almost right away that the dwarf colony there was overrun by orcs, and it's all
fucked.
It's all destroyed. And it's been destroyed for a while now.
Yeah. There is definitely signs of struggle and
many dead bodies,
many corpses.
So at this point, it's just get out quietly and quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And even that doesn't work out very well. While there, they, through a series of unfortunate events, they end up encountering the one and only Durin's Bane.
Durin's Bane, which is a leftover Balrog from the First Age.
Yeah.
And if you've listened to our other stuff, season 1, we talk about, the age of the Balrogs, essentially, when there were, like, a shitload of them running around.
Yeah, there are numerous.
Yeah, and it takes a phenomenal warrior to kill one of these things.
Right.
Like, it's only been done. Glorfindel did it. Ecthelion did it. Gandalf did it.
And that was also more or less them forcing the Balrog over a ledge or something, or into a fountain. They didn't.
Glorfindel pushed him off a cliff, and Ecthelion drowned him.
Drown him in a fountain, right? So that you might even say that they didn't even directly kill the Balrog.
Right? Yeah, no, they kind of didn't. Yeah.
They used their environment to help kill it. So, like, this is a big deal. This is a very big deal. Technically, the Balrog is also a Maiar, so technically him and Gandalf are on the same tier
Oh yeah,
of power.
it's still a fair fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a hell of a fight.
it's more fair than the other ones because Icthalion and Glorfindel, they're just high elves. They're not Maiar.
Right. So Gandalf decides he's obviously got to be the one to face this off if anyone's going to. And after a brief exchange of blows, Gandalf says some really epic stuff and breaks the bridge of Khazad-dûm, sending both him and the Balrog down this just endless,
Into the abyss.
yeah, just a pit.
And this is everybody's favorite scene from the movie.
It was epic.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest. I mean, just like even looking at the Lord of the Rings from a film standpoint, which I don't know if people might not know, film was my first love, really. It was what I was trying to go to school for and stuff. But even from a film standpoint, that scene is just the shit. Like
Yeah.
it's so well made. It's fucking fantastic.
And then the prologue from Two Towers where they come
Yeah,
back
where they
to
expand on that shit.
it. Oh,
That blew my mind. When that camera follows Gandalf down the hole and you see him grab Glamdring halfway through, you were like, "Holy shit, this is about to go off."
this is happening.
Yeah.
We're going to see it.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to throw out a quick excerpt for you guys from this scene, just because it's too epic. We had to. The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other, Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. It raised the whip, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. "You cannot pass," he said. The orc stood still. A dead silence fell. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you. Flame of Udun, go back to the shadow. You cannot pass."
What? Yeah, that's one of the greatest things ever. In the movie, they changed it to "shall not," but I feel it doesn't really take away from the
No.
no. Either way, you shall not, you cannot pass. Gandalf has drawn a line in the sand, man. You are not getting across this bridge.
And I don't know if anyone can deliver that line better than Ian McKellen did.
No.
Maybe it's because I grew up with it, but anytime I think of the way they could do casting better or anything, Ian McKellen always stays.
Yeah,
He is Gandalf.
Well, the only thing that, like a what if universe is like, I knew that Christopher Lee really wanted to be Gandalf.
Mhm.
And like, that's the only other person that I would be like, yeah, he might be able to pull it off too. I wonder I wonder
what would it be like?
what it would be like if the roles were reversed.
Ian McKellen.
Because he can play a villain.
He does a great
he's
he does a
Magneto.
great villain. He does
He's
Magneto
Magneto.
really well.
Yeah.
I actually can't recall off the top of my head a Christopher Lee role where he's a protagonist and not an antagonist. But
Yeah, I can't. The Willy Wonka movie. I don't
the
know.
poor guy.
Yeah. No, I think Ian McKellen is the shit, and so is Christopher Lee. So they could. We should go to like Rick and Morty style, like go to that universe and watch that version
Yeah.
where the roles are reversed. Yeah. One day we'll do that.
The infinite universes. All right, so after a long fall with the Balrog, Gandalf and the Balrog crash into a deep subterranean lake far under the mountains. And a crazy battle ensues that Gandalf doesn't tell a whole lot about, but he gets into the ending.
Yeah, it was 2 days long. They fought for 2 days and nights, and the whole battle kind of goes from the pit of Moria all the way to the tippy top of the mountain.
Sorry, you read that wrong. It's 8 days. And
Did
then
I
the
read that wrong?
yeah.
Fuck.
And the battle on the peak took 2 extra days.
Oh, that's what I was reading. 2 days. Yeah. So we're talking 10 days total, right? Yeah. So it's a Maiar versus Maiar 10-day all-out brawl.
Yeah, from the bottom of the depths of this secret lake in the roots of a mountain all the way to the top, tippity-top peak, they fought.
Called Zirak Ziggle, right? Isn't that how you say it?
I can't pronounce it. I can't even hope to pronounce it. The dwarves have such a hard language.
I think it's Zirak Ziggle.
But ultimately, in the end, I'm sure as most of us know, Gandalf ends up defeating the Balrog, but at the price of his own death. And he dies on that mountaintop. And when he describes it, he says that his spirit traveled out of thought and time. Now, eventually, Gandalf's spirit was sent back to Middle-earth
Right, yeah, by the Valar.
by the Valar, because ultimately he was sent there by Manwë to deal with Sauron, and obviously he hasn't finished yet, this poor son of a bitch.
Yeah.
He's already been killed after a 10-day crazy battle, and I mean, on top of everything else he's already done.
And out of the 5 motherfuckers they sent over there, he's the only one still doing his job.
Right, he's dying.
Yeah, he's the only one to die for it.
So he's the one of the 5 that's actually doing it right. So when they send him back, they make him Gandalf the White. And they take the title from Saruman. I guess at this point Saruman
took it away from himself.
He already gave it up. He proclaimed himself as Saruman of many
colors. Yeah. All right, so here's the quote about Gandalf dying. Then the darkness took me, and I strayed out of all thought and time, and I wandered far on the roads that I will not tell.
Naked, I was sent back for a brief time until my task is done. And naked I lay upon the mountain top. There I lay, staring upward, while the stars wheeled over, and each day was as long as a life age of the earth.
Naked.
Gandalf
naked. There's a few moments of nakedness in Tolkien. This is one of them.
Yeah, he really uses it to convey, like, just utter helplessness.
Yeah,
I feel like.
desperation. Yeah, because the one other naked scene is the Finrod and Baron in the dungeons.
They're thrown in they're thrown in the pits of Sauron's dungeons, and there's a werewolf killing off their men from the dark one by one, and they're all naked and defenseless. It's super terrifying.
Yeah, Finrod kills a werewolf naked with his teeth and
hands. A werewolf.
Other epic stories from the first age.
We digress. So at this point, his body was found by Gwaihir. Did I say it again?
I say Gwaihir.
Gwaihir? Did I say it right? Okay. And
he's the Lord of Eagles. He's a descendant of Thorondor from the first age.
Yep, he was the one that saved him earlier off of the top of
Orthanc.
Yes.
And then in The Hobbit as well, he fought in the Gwaihir fought in the Battle of Five Armies.
Oh yeah, was he the one that led the Eagles?
Yeah, it's always him. It's always, if it's not Thorondor, it's Gwaihir. There's one other one that is named his brother, Gwaihir's brother. I can't remember his friggin' name.
They're both the sons of Thorondor, though.
Yeah,
right?
but they're sons of Thorondor.
So Gwaihir finds Gandalf's body on top of the mountain after he was sent by Galadriel to look for Gandalf. Because at this point, I'm sure she figured something bad was going on. So Gwaihir carried Gandalf to Caras Galadon in Lothlorien. Did I say that right?
Galadron.
Yeah.
It's that DH makes that the sound.
It's a special place in the forest of Lothlorien where he was healed and clothed in white by Galadriel. I'm sure Galadriel was very happy about this because she ultimately appreciated Gandalf the most of the 5 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted him to be the leader.
Yeah, and this can't have been too damn long after the Fellowship had left Lothlorien, right? They had to have just left.
Yeah, they had to have just left because the battle took 10 days on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
They made it to Lothlorien, in a couple days after they left Moria? Because
day or two, yeah.
That was right at the east entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in Lothlorien for a while. Gosh, I should have looked up exactly how many days.
I didn't think of that until just now. But they had literally probably just left.
Yeah,
within a few days. Yeah,
just like as always happens with Gandalf. It seems like as soon as they got to Bree and then they left.
Yeah, Gandalf shows up a little bit later. Yeah.
So after he gets healed in Lothlorien, he traveled to Fengorn Forest, where he encounters Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas. This is during the Two Towers, I believe, while they're on their search for Merry and Pippin, who have been captured by orcs.
Yeah. We track a band of Uruk-hai westward across the plain. They have taken 2 of our friends captive.
The orcs were slain in the night.
We piled the carcasses and burned them.
I'm sorry.
They would be small, only children to your eyes.
We left none alive.
We're just gonna do the rest of the Two Towers now. Anyway, yeah, Fangorn Forest. So that's that's where Gandalf meets up with the Broken Fellowship again.
Yeah, this is the first time that they see him since he's died, and they completely mistake him for Saruman since Gandalf is white now.
Oh yeah, but before this, Gandalf meets with Treebeard, right? And
Yeah.
puts Pippin and Merry in his care.
Yeah, shortly before he runs into them, while he's in Fangorn, he also entrusts Merry and Pippin to Treebeard's care.
Treebeard, yeah. So yeah, he basically tells the Fellowship, he's like, hey, don't worry about it. Pippin and Merry are in good hands. We got other things to worry about.
And they do. So he explains to the three of them there that they need to go to Rohan instead. They need to stop looking for Merry and Pippin because they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains about the impending attack on Edoras by Saruman.
Yeah, because Saruman's just gearing up to just fucking crush Rohan right now.
Which is the next big thing for Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
So together they traveled to Rohan, and Gandalf found that Theoden there is even weaker than he was last time Gandalf had visited, due to Grima Wormtongue.
Mm-hmm. Theoden being King of Rohan.
King Theoden.
King Theoden. Yeah, but he's kind of under this weird spell where he's like pre-aged, like he's real old looking, and this is a really good scene in the movie. The book isn't quite like that, but at the same time, it's kind of like a classic exorcism scene in the movie, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, but so Gandalf eventually breaks that spell, and Theoden is released from the spell, and they also kick out Grima Wormtongue from Edoras.
Yeah, they throw him right out. Yeah, he's the worst. So now that King Theoden is come back to himself, and Gandalf is there to advise him about the oncoming attack, King Theoden decides that the Rohirrim are going to go to Helm's Deep, which is basically their giant fortress in the mountains not far from there. It's a great place to go for war, and they can just kind of wait things out. And while they rode off to do that, Gandalf separated and rode to Orthanc and asked Treebeard to encourage the Hurons. It's like lesser Ents.
Huorns, yeah.
Huorns.
They said the Pippin in the book at one point. They Pippin and Merry they gather that they were the Ents that had gone what Treebeard calls tree-ish.
Oh, gotcha. But Gandalf goes to Orthanc where Treebeard and friends have already overthrown Isengard, and he implores them to help with the battle at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, and so meanwhile the Fellowship and Theoden they're nestling into Helm's Deep, and Gandalf set off to find a character that's not in the movie at all, but he's one of the Lords of the Mark. His name is Erkenbrand.
Yeah, he's a pretty big deal with Rohan.
Yeah, Erkenbrand. So he basically gets Erkenbrand and a whole bunch of men to ride to Helm's Deep to help with the impending battle.
Now, luckily for them, Gandalf and Erkenbrand's horses arrived just in time as Saruman's attack on Helm's Deep was really starting to...
Really getting down to the wire.
Yeah, it was really getting down to the wire. They almost lost, and they came in right in the nick of time, which also, ironically, was right at sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
That was Gandalf's strategy, timing up with the sunrise.
Yeah. And then that also just plays into Tolkien's overall theme of light being good and darkness being evil.
Right. So after the ensuing battle, Gandalf and King Theoden rode to Isengard, which had been completely conquered by the Ents and Merry and Pippin. And there, Gandalf broke Saruman's staff and expelled him from the White Council permanently and the Order of the Wizards, and he completely assumed Saruman's place as head of both. Because, Saruman has showed everyone that he's not Saruman the White anymore.
Right, he's totally abandoned his former cause. Mm-hmm. And Grima Wormtongue at this point does something rather stupid. And he chucks out something out of the window to try to hit Gandalf. And it turns out it's the Palantir of Orthanc, which is probably the dumbest thing you could throw from the tower because it was literally the only bargaining chip that they had locked up in that tower.
It was a pretty derpy move.
Yeah,
on
pretty
Grimma's
derpy
part.
move. And then so that Palantir comes into play quite a bit in that that's how they found out that Saruman was talking to Sauron.
Yeah, that's really when they connected the dots
Mm-hmm.
and what happened there. Like, how did Saruman go south?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he was messing with this Palantir.
Because just a quick review, Palantir are the 7 Seeing Stones brought to Middle Earth by the Númenóreans in exile. And they can communicate with each other and see things far off.
Mm-hmm.
And there were originally 7 of them. A few of them are lost. One of them's in Minas Tirith. One is in Orthanc. And there was one in Minas Ithil, which fell to Sauron, which is how Sauron got a hold of one. So this is how Sauron and Saruman are able to speak to each other. And later we also find out that Denethor was talking to Saruman via the Minas Anor stone.
You mean he was talking to Sauron?
Did I say Saruman?
You did.
Sauron. Yes, he was talking to Sauron.
So the Seeing Stones, they're a pretty big deal throughout all this, and he just throws it out the window,
Just throws it.
trying to hit Gandalf and totally misses. And
yeah, I love in the book too. There's a moment when when Saruman finds out what he threw, and you can just hear Wormtongue screaming because Saruman is super pissed off.
so after they left Isengard, Pippin had the Palantir and ended up giving it up to Gandalf, obviously. But he takes it back from Gandalf while Gandalf was sleeping one night and decides to look in.
Very stupid.
Very stupid.
Fool of a took.
Fool of a took. He comes face to face with Sauron himself.
Yeah. So Pippin has this chat with Sauron via the Palantir, and Sauron is basically under. So he figures Pippin sees a little bit of what Sauron's plan. He sees some imagery that Gandalf later figures out. He's talking about Minas Tirith.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Sauron thinks that he is the halfling that has the ring that he thinks he's talking to, which confuses the fuck out of Sauron.
Yeah, Gandalf obviously uses this to his advantage.
Because he's smart.
So he takes Pippin to Gondor, more or less because Gandalf knows that he's going to need to help Gondor, aiding them in the defenses of this major attack that's about to come from Mordor. And he takes Pippin along with to more or less keep him out of trouble.
And that's on the ways Gandalf explains the Palantir to Pippin. And so Pippin kind of understands like what he actually did.
Yeah, now he understands what he was messing with. Some real ancient, like, first age shit.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
and he drops Feanor's name. He says they're probably made by Feanor.
Yeah, Feanorian.
Yeah, and so again, these were gifted to the Númenóreans when they set up their kingdom by the elves. Or was it Valar? Did the Valar give it to him? Or it might have been the Valar. I don't know. They came from Valinor, so.
They came from Valinor,
Yeah.
ultimately. It's a big deal. And also along the way, Gandalf says something kind of fun. He basically tells Pippin that he thinks it's fortunate that it was Pippin that came in contact with Sauron rather than him. Because Gandalf says he didn't think he was ready yet to face Sauron.
Yeah, because Gandalf, like we said at the beginning.
That's saying a lot.
In the last episode, remember, Gandalf didn't want to go to Middle Earth because he's straight up scared of Sauron.
Yeah.
He's still afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's still afraid of him.
He's got a very respectful fear of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He recognizes a very powerful Maiar when he sees it. So arriving in Minas Tirith, Gandalf and Pippin meet Denethor. And Gandalf tries to give Denethor some counsel about the oncoming slaughter. But Denethor just completely refuses. At this point, Denethor has been totally mind scrambled using his Palantir, his Lost Seeing Stone, talking to Sauron.
Mm-hmm. And that's where he kind of gets this defeatist attitude toward, what does he say? Against the power that has arisen in the East, there is no victory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he gets really despair. I mean, because that's what Sauron does, is he spreads despair, right?
Yeah. He falls into despair, and he's, totally defeatist. So now that Gandalf and Pippin are in Minas Tirith. They're around for a host of things that happen. Faramir goes on a charge to try to retake Osgiliath, and that goes horribly bad. And it's really lucky that Gandalf was there, because he assists them.
Yeah, because they have a few Nazgul on them, right?
Yeah, he assists them as they ride back to the city.
Mm-hmm. That's a really epic part of the book.
The chapter of the White Rider.
Yeah, when the White Rider when Gandalf comes out.
Yeah, that whole chapter is super epic.
Can we break here for a little story?
Yes.
This is a little insight into my life. So that scene in particular there where Gandalf rides out and meets the Nazgul and makes him fuck off. So this is back in the day. Me and my friends were hanging out in my garage where we would smoke lots of marijuana, just a whole bunch. And so my friend Aaron was over, and he was going to pick a movie, so I sent him into my house. And I was like, yeah, pick whatever movie you got. I got like 300 movies. Go ahead, pick one. And Aaron comes back not with a movie, but my Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I haven't read at this point. This was 2011. I hadn't read them since I was a child. So Aaron, we're quite under the influence, and Aaron starts reading. He just picks a random passage, and he picks that one.
Yeah, he opens it up right to the White Rider, doesn't he?
Yeah, right to the White Rider, and he was just like, Shadowfax bore him. And I remember thinking, like, as he's reading this, I was like, this is so much more epic than I remember it. Like, this is crazy. And so that was when I decided to reread the trilogy for the second time in my life, when I really started to appreciate it. And then I became obsessed with not only the trilogy, but then I went on to the Silmarillion and blah, 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 blah. And now we're here, and I have a Tolkien podcast. So if not for Aaron going into my house to get that copy of my book and read that, I wouldn't be as obsessed. I mean, I would still love Tolkien, but I wouldn't be near as obsessed with it.
So you're saying the White Rider was like the spark that reignited your Tolkien love.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. And marijuana, too. That helps.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Tolkien and marijuana is a good combination, guys. Don't let anybody tell you different.
So after the incident defending Faramir from the Nazgul, Gandalf is there to provide some invaluable aid to the White City during the onslaught.
Yeah, and onslaught it is.
Yeah, absolute onslaught. So together, Gandalf with Prince Imrahil, which is another character that we didn't hear about in the movies, and is a
huge character.
He's a huge character, yeah.
He's a Gondorian prince. Like, he's Dunedain from the south.
Right.
He's leader of the largest city in southern Gondor.
Dol Amroth.
Dol Amroth, which is down in sunny Gondor, the real
sunny,
the kind of like tropical part of Gondor.
That'd be a nice place to live.
Yeah, no, apparently it's beautiful. It's right on the sea. People love it.
So him and Gandalf, they together lead the They lead the defenses of the city, since at this point, Denethor has completely rendered himself useless.
Yeah, he's gone completely insane. He's done for.
Yeah, and they completely managed the defenses of the city during this onslaught, which buys them just enough time for the Rohirrim to ride in and save the day.
Yeah, and that excerpt this is where we get to that the excerpt from the beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
There's the moment which we read, which is when they finally breach the gates, and the Witch King is the first one to ride in, and there's only one person to meet him there but Gandalf. And he basically says, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
Get your shit and get out of here.
It's like You Shall Not Pass 2.0,
all
but
over again.
way more intense. Like an entire army.
Yeah, and it's an epic moment. We didn't read to the end, but what eventually makes the Witch King withdraw is the horns of the Rohirrim. They're here. So he has to go deal with that instead. So we never got to see that Gandalf versus the Witch King one-on-one.
Oh, that would have been something, though.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it'd be no problem for Gandalf. I mean, he killed a Balrog when he was the Grey. There was a guy... I can't remember. I wish I remember his name. But he, thanks for commenting, by the way, on the Facebook page. But he was talking about Gandalf, how he would have taken the Witch King apart.
Oh, yeah.
And because he was able to kill a Balrog when he was Gandalf the Grey.
Right. He was able to take down another Maiar when he was Gandalf the Grey. Now he's Gandalf the White, and the Witch King is what, a black Numenorian, right? It's just gone.
He's a man of some. He's a ghost essentially.
Gone necromancer.
Yeah, he's a fucking ghost. Like it's a ghost versus a ghost versus a Maiar. I mean, it's really no competition in my mind.
It still would have been badass to see, though.
Oh yeah, it would have been a hell of a fight.
I imagine it would have been a little bit of Gandalf like uncloaked.
Yeah, when you get to see him do that every now and then. Yeah.
Oh, super badass moments. But at that point, Gandalf would have ridden out to aid the Rohirrim in this epic moment, but instead, he hears the pleas of Pippin, and that's when Pippin brings to his attention the fact that Denethor and Faramir are about to both burn alive on a pyre in Rothdainen, which is like the burial, funeral portion of the city.
Yeah, their mausoleum, essentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Denethor has gone crazy and is about to burn himself and Faramir alive. Faramir was wounded after his...
Yeah, with a poison arrow. So he's got a fever.
Yeah, he's more or less unconscious at this point.
And yeah, there's no mistaking him for being dead at this point. Like, he's actually burning up. Like, he's got a fever because he's been hit with a poison arrow. Like, and Denethor is just like, yeah, he's dead. Let's burn him.
So Gandalf arrives just in the nick of time. He takes Faramir off of the stack of wood, and he tries to talk to Denethor again and, do the whole cop thing.
Yeah.
Counsel him against suicide.
Talk him off the edge.
But Denethor, having already been driven crazy, he's just driven mad with grief from Sauron's messages, and he just sets the pyre aflame and burns himself alive. And in grief, Gandalf closes the doors of the chamber. You hear Denethor give out one cry, and that's it.
What did he say? So passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion. The end.
The end of Denethor. So after the battle of Pelennor Fields, which was just insane, we get to the final council. And this is the point where they've just barely survived the onslaught of Sauron. And that wasn't nearly everything that Sauron had to throw at them. That's just what I guess he thought would be sufficient to kill off Minas Tirith. They just barely scraped by by the skin of their teeth.
Skin of their teeth, yeah. Yeah, and that was due mostly to not only the Rohirrim showing up in force, but also Aragorn and the Dunedain Rangers and the Sons of Elrond taking down those Corsair ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leading the army of the dead.
Leading the army of the dead, man.
God, so much epicness just coming together here. So at this point, they know that Sauron is going to strike again, and he's going to strike harder, and they are by no means prepared to handle that. Their only hope of survival at this point is hoping that Frodo and Sam get to Mount Doom in time.
Yeah, it's the only thing at this point.
And Gandalf tries to explain that to the surviving leaders.
Yeah, and this
there are a lot of dead people.
This is the chapter, the last debate in the Return of the King, which is, for my money, has some of the best dialogue in the trilogy. It's awesome.
It's very intense and to the point,
and very bleak.
Incredibly bleak.
Yeah, they are not convinced that their plan will work. Essentially, that they come up with. Joel's going to read an excerpt about it. Here we go.
An excerpt from
the last debate from the Return of the King, right? Right on.
This, then, is my counsel. We have not the ring. In wisdom or great folly it has been sent away to be destroyed, lest it destroy us. Without it, we cannot by force defeat Sauron's forces, but we must at all costs keep his eye from the true peril. We must call out his hidden strength so that he shall empty his land. We must make ourselves the bait, though his jaws should close on us. We must walk open-eyed into that trap, with courage, but small hope for ourselves. For, my lords, it may well prove that we ourselves shall perish utterly in a black battle far from the living lands, so that even if Barad-dûr be thrown down, we shall not live to see a new age. But this, I deem, is our duty.
Wow. That's some heavy shit.
Yeah, he just lays it all down.
Gandalf is basically like, we might have to kill ourselves, guys. Like, this might be the end of us. We're going to have to march off into someplace far away and disgusting and fight for as long as we can. And hopefully the two little hobbits can destroy the ring in time for us all not to die.
It's like, for better or worse, this is how it is. At this point, this is the best play that we can do.
Right.
And we'll probably die, but it's the only way we can achieve our goal. Like,
And how would you feel if you were a citizen of Minas Tirith? Just looking at this, so you survive this crazy battle, right?
Mhm.
The king returns,
and
then all of a sudden, like a day or two later,
they go on a suicide.
They go on a
mission.
suicide mission. You're just like, well, fuck.
This is
There goes the king, I guess. Like,
just a fucking mess.
yeah, and yeah.
The city is a mess.
It is a mess. And Prince Imrahil's actually in charge of that shit.
Yeah, Prince Imrahil's in charge of the city. He agrees to take charge of the city until Aragorn comes back in, because Aragorn has decided he will not enter the city until he comes to claim it for himself.
Right, because normally it would be the steward who's taking care of it, but Denethor is dead, and then Faramir would technically be the steward, but he's unconscious.
Right. I definitely think Prince Imrahil is the next best character, because he's
oh hell yeah, he's awesome.
He's a hell of a leader.
Yeah, the Swan Knights, right?
The Swan Knights, those are his people. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So this is what brings us to the battle at the Black Gate, the final battle in the War of the Ring. Gandalf, alongside Aragorn, they just walk right on up to the Black Gates.
Literally, yeah. Let the Lord of the Black Land come forth, is what they say. All right, here he comes.
I mean, to be honest, I'm almost surprised Sauron would fall for something like that, but
he's too prideful, man. He thinks he's gonna crush him in a single blow.
I suppose that was their tactic, sort of, was
right,
using his pride,
his pride against him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically pound on the Black Gate, knock, 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 and they send out a single rider
in parley,
and it's a character called the Mouth of Sauron, who is a unbelievable asshole.
I love this character.
Me too.
I absolutely love the rendition that they did in the movie.
Yeah, in the extended version. Yeah, because they cut it out.
Disgusting.
It's so fucking gross when he's just like, "Is there anyone in this route with authority to treat with me?"
And like his disgusting teeth and his lips are split. It's a gruesomely beautiful sight.
It's good. It's a good scene. But yeah, so they come out. They have a fake, like a little bit of a treaty session. He's essentially like, "Hey, Sauron's willing to cut a deal with you if you give all lands east of the Misty Mountains to him." And they're like, "Yeah, no."
He also tries to taunt him with Frodo's mithril shirt and some of the hobbits' belongings, trying to tell them that they've already failed.
Right. And that's it's heavy in the book, because the way the reason they cut it out of the movie is because it didn't have the emotional value that it did in the book, because the timelines are different in the book. So, like, book 1 of The Return of the King is all of the Broken Fellowship and nothing about Frodo and Sam.
Right.
So, at this point, you've read The Two Towers, which ends with Frodo being captured by orcs. And then the next thing you hear is the Mouth of Sauron holding up his mithril coat, like, "Hey, we got your boy."
Like, there's nothing more plain as day that they've obviously gotten to Frodo. They're holding up his mithril shirt and some of their other belongings. I think some of their clothes and things.
But Gandalf, being a person of hope, he refuses to believe it. He's like, "This is Sauron. He's a liar. He's probably
the
lying.
deceiver.
Sauron the deceiver. So he's probably lying. There's a good chance that Frodo's still alive. Let's go ahead with the regular plan."
Yeah, Gandalf just straight up rejects the surrender and says, "We're gonna fight. We're gonna attack," and faces the full forces of Sauron at the gates.
Yeah, he literally empties the Black Land.
I can only imagine what kind of army that would be like.
It would be fucking crazy, dude. Just crazy.
But luckily, at that time, we get to the destruction of the ring and the downfall of Sauron's armies, and the eagles come.
Hell yeah, those eagles again, they show up. Clutch moments, they show up.
Yeah, they always show up when you need them to be there.
Mhm.
Honestly, they could show up a little bit more. I
Yeah,
think
you know what? They could. Yeah, they
they
could.
could show up a little more. I think it would be helpful. But, at least they don't leave you hanging in the real tough
Yeah,
moments.
yeah. If you're up Shit Creek without a paddle, the Eagles might come save you. If your cause is just, they will save you.
Especially if you're Gandalf.
Especially if you're freaking Gandalf. Yeah, so Gandalf basically mounts up on Guahir, and they fly over to the Mount Doom to pick up Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, because at this point, he knows they're there.
Yeah. Yeah, because obviously...
Whether or not they're alive.
Yeah, whether or not they're alive, there's somebody destroyed the ring.
And I mean, Gandalf has been, pushing for hope against all odds throughout this entire business. Why not push for hope now? So he rides over to the mountain on the Eagles, and he rescues Frodo and Sam. A beautiful, beautiful end to that
Terribly tragic tale.
terribly tragic story.
So, yeah, Gandalf has Frodo and Sam flown back to Minas Tirith, and they hang out there for a while. And this is the coolest. I mean, this is like one of my favorite parts of the book because like everything, because there's still a shitload left of the book after the ring is destroyed.
Right, there's a lot of recovery.
Yeah, there's a lot of recovery, and this is the period where you like, people are being healed up. Mary's still in the hospital. You get to see. Oh, well, one of the sweetest moments of the book is when Eowyn and Faramir fall in love in the Houses of Healing. Yeah, it's a sweet little story.
And then all the healing that happens, Aragorn spends a lot of time in the Houses of the Healing, using the healing hands of the king.
Yeah, using that Ethelas. Kingsfoil, that's a weed.
Yeah, so they hang out there more or less during recovery and rebuilding and just kind of gathering ourselves. They're there for like 4 years.
Yeah, and this is when Aragorn is establishing himself as the king.
Mm-hmm.
They do the coronation, and also he's married to Arwen.
Doesn't he call him? He takes the name King Elisar.
Elisar, yeah. Elisar.
So after 4 years of recovering from the war, Gandalf finally accompanies the hobbits back west towards the borders of the Shire. Now, little do they know, the hobbits are about to go back to the Shire, and it's going to be a shit show, and they're going to go into the scouring of the Shire. But this isn't about the hobbits.
That's not about this, guys. We're probably gonna do a whole friggin' episode about the scouring of the Shire, mainly because they cut it out of the movie, and it's a very integral part of the story that completely changes the tone of the Lord of the Rings.
It really, really does. Me and Danny have had so many conversations about this.
So many conversations about
But we're
this.
going to get into that later. We're following
guys.
Gandalf right now.
Yeah, Gandalf. Let's follow him.
This is another really cool moment because after everything is said and done, Gandalf's purpose has been accomplished. Sauron is essentially vanquished and he can never take physical form again. Gandalf's about to head back into the West. So what's one of the last things that he wants to do before he leaves Middle-earth? Well, while accompanying the hobbits back to the Shire, on the border of the Shire, he decides to tell them, hey, I'm going to meet up with you guys later. I'm going to go hang out with Tom Bombadil for a little bit. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things you said that I just want to drive home, too, is because Sauron is a Maiar, right? He's not completely destroyed. He is thrown down, essentially. And now he's just kind of like a fart in the wind. Like, he's not...
Right. That's essentially all he is.
Yeah, he's just a fart in the wind.
After that, he hung around Mordor as just like a dark cloud of malice for a while, and then they said one day, it was like a westerly wind just blew him away.
Blew him away. Fart in the wind, guys. So we're going to read a little quote from Gandalf, Parts from the Hobbits, on the borders of the Shire. But if you would know, I am turning aside soon. I'm going to have a long talk with Bombadil, such a talk as I have not had in all my time. He is a moss gatherer, and I have been a stone doomed to rolling, but my rolling days are ending, and now we shall have much to say to one another.
I want to know what they talked about.
I want to know, man. I want to hear that conversation so friggin' bad.
Because I feel like not only would that tell us more about who the fuck Tom Bombadil is, but I mean, I can only imagine the crazy conversations that they would have.
Yeah, you're like, hey,
they've both been around forever.
Yeah. She's like, hey, you remember when the sun rose for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that shit was weird.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, you remember when half the continent got sank into the ocean by the Valar? Oh, man, that was crazy.
Shit was wild.
They'd have a lot to relive together.
Oh yeah.
We have our own theories about who Tom Bombadil is, but we'll get into that in another episode. At this point, it isn't known what the meeting was about or what they discussed. Maybe there's some notes somewhere out there that J.R.R. wrote down in the vast archives that Christopher has, but we'll see what happens.
That'll be in the unfinished tales. The way more unfinished tales.
The ultra super unfinished.
Super unfinished.
Although at one point, Gandalf did remark to the hobbits that Bombadil would doubtless have little interest in their tales.
Yeah, and anything that they just done. Yeah, he's like, he's not going to give a shit about anything that we did, but...
He said, except save for maybe the encounters with the Ents.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm sure Bombadil would love to meet the Ents.
Yeah, it's like, word, the Ents?
If he didn't
the Ents rose up?
If he didn't already know them, I'm sure he probably knows them. He's been around forever.
Yeah, no, he totally knows Ents. Yeah, man, they've been around forever. He's probably friends with them and shit.
So after his conversation with good old Bombadil, after having spent over 2,000 years in Middle-earth, which is nowhere near as long as Círdan.
Nowhere near as long as Círdan. In fact, it's like 8,000 years shy.
But after having spent 2,000 years in Middle-earth, Gandalf finally departs for the west with Frodo, Galadriel, Celgorm.
Oh, Celeborn, bro.
Celeborn.
Not that Celegorm, that dick from the first age.
No, he died.
Celeborn of Doriath.
Celeborn of Doriath, Bilbo, Elrond, and I think that was all that went at that point, right? I don't think any other character. I know Círdan didn't go at that point.
No, Círdan didn't go at that point, no. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so at the White Havens, we had...
Grey Havens, bro.
I'm sorry. At the Grey Havens, we had Gandalf, Frodo, Galadriel, Celeborn, Bilbo, and Elrond sailing for the Undying Lands.
Yeah, and that's the ring bearers, essentially. Gandalf being the ring... I mean, he probably had a ticket home anyway, just because he's done with his shit. But he's also one of the ring bearers passing over the sea.
That is when he finally officially reveals his possession of Narya. That's when it becomes generally known that he had it.
He openly wears it at that point, too. Yeah.
That's when he first reveals that he's the one that had Narya since
Círdan gave it to him.
Since Círdan, what?
Oh my God, you guys, you have no idea how important Círdan is. And if you don't, you should go back and listen to the last episode of Season 1, because we tell you all about it.
And there's a reason why Círdan was friends with Gandalf and why he gave Gandalf that ring, because Gandalf is one of the most crucial characters in Tolkien. Well, he's one of the most crucial characters in the Third Age. He is. He's literally like a direct answer to Sauron's threat.
Yeah, for real. Because the Valar don't want to get involved with Sauron like they did with Morgoth. You know what I mean? Because they got their hands dirty with that. And look what happened. It sank half the fucking world.
Right.
So they're like, we're going to send some people, but we're not going to get involved ourselves. And that's going to be Gandalf. And he does a bang-up job, man.
He does a hell of a job. Gandalf, man, if there was one person I could wish to real life, it'd be Gandalf.
Yeah, we need a friggin' Gandalf. Mithrandir. Yeah, we need a friggin' Gandalf, guys.
But that's all we've got for you for episode 2, guys.
Yeah, that's Gandalf. Everybody's favorite character, I think. Everybody knows Gandalf. Even if you haven't seen The Lord of the Rings or read the books, everybody knows who Gandalf is, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
He's a real stand-up guy.
Yeah. You shall not pass. All right, guys. Well, this is going to be it for us. Thanks for listening again. This is our first
installment for season 2.
First installment, yeah. Two-parter on Gandalf.
Mm-hmm.
I think it went well. Hopefully you guys do too.
Let us know what you thought.
Let us know.
Did we leave anything out?
Yeah, did we leave anything out? Do you think we fucked up anywhere? Let us know. Let us know, man. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter.
Whatever floats your boat.
Whatever floats your boat, man. This has been Danny J. Thanks so much for listening.
And this is Joel N, guys. And as always,
keep on Tolkien.
Keep on Tolkien.
Aure and Tulava.